Hello and welcome to 52%, the show that talks about everything and anything going on in Liverpool and beyond from the perspective of 52% of the population, women.
And on this week's show, we're tackling an issue that really does affect all of us women, the tampon tax. We'll also be talking to Hope Face founder and director, Miss Grace Henney, about the hardships for women living on the streets. So here's what's coming up on today's show.
We're joined by the founder of Hope Fest, Grace Henney, who, as well as being a musician, devotes her time to running the festival that supports organisations such as Whitechapel, Liverpool, Crisis, The Big Issue and the Basement Advisory Centre. Anna, tell us a little bit about Hope Fest and how it all started.
Well, Hope Fest is a music festival in Liverpool in aid of the homeless. Like this year, it was in 15 venues and we had around 200 bands playing. The entry fee is actually in items such as food and clothing rather than money, although you can pay money as well. But generally we ask for a Hope Pack, and the Hope Pack consists of 5 items from a list of essentials that will go directly to homeless people. And in exchange for the Hope Pack, you get a wristband for the entire weekend.
Mm-hmm. So what made you come up with this concept? Was there something that particularly touched you that thought, I really want to reach out and help here? What made you do it?
Well, I actually started volunteering with a homeless organisation who go out on the streets of Liverpool and feed people and give them warm clothes and things like that. And that was about 2 years ago. And because I'm a singer-songwriter myself, I just thought of an idea to put 2 things together. Mm-hmm. And this is what I came up with, and it's actually grown quite big, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know, Lisa, you've had quite a lot of involvement with Anna as well, haven't you? And obviously homeless charities. I don't know if you've got some questions for her.
What I particularly like about the Hope Fest charity is how you get your wristband. I think it's quite unique in that you donate a pack rather than, as you say, just give money.
That's it.
People like to do something more tangible than just give the money. That's the easy thing.
And it actually encourages people to think about what it might be like to live on the streets, because when they're putting the pack together, they think, would they prefer a hoodie or a jumper, or, you know, what would I need if I was on the street? So it actually really makes people think a lot more than just handing over a tenner or something like that.
Yeah, because that means somebody else has got to make the decision about what to do with the money.
Yeah.
And actually, it really does. It empowers people, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it's a great idea. Fantastic.
Handing over money isn't necessarily the right thing to do for homeless people.
Yeah,
Not
that's
always.
right.
I mean, I've got an example even from something that happened yesterday. We were talking about this just before. I was in Southport yesterday, and I was walking along the main street there, and there was a homeless man, and there was a little girl walked past with her daughter, took the money out as if to sort of say to her daughter, you know, look, this is what I'm doing, I'm helping. And the little girl, they were all delighted. And I carried on walking, and I turned around, and my kids turned around and watched him get up and walk into the pub over the road with it. And that's when I don't mean it loses sympathy, because we raised the point earlier when we were talking that, you know, if you were in that situation, you probably would want to drown it out your head. But this is the thing that the whole idea of the pack that you've got, the Hope Fest, it is making people think there's not just the money, this is actually going to help them.
But it does. Sorry. No,
it just really makes people like put themselves in the shoes of the homeless person. Like, you know, they think about how they would feel if they were in that position. And some of the things we got donated were great. We also encourage people to give stuff for starting a new home, like a home starter kit, because a lot of the services in Liverpool actually help people to get rehoused and things like that. So someone actually donated a cookery book and then ingredients to make some of the meals in the book, which I thought was really sweet.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But I think it can be as well. It's like your preconceptions of homeless people. When I think of homeless people, I immediately think male, drunk problems, drug problems, and mental health issues. So I don't necessarily think of homeless people as women.
Yeah, I mean the proportion of homeless men and to women is greater, but there's around 26% of homeless people who are women who use the homeless services in Liverpool. And they're often find themselves homeless through domestic violence and other issues that don't affect men so much. Obviously they do, but not as greatly as women. And they're a lot more vulnerable, I think, on the streets than men are, because they can be susceptible to sexual abuse or, you know, encouraged to go into prostitution and all this sort of thing. So it must be really tough to be a woman on the street.
Well, we're all 3 paychecks away from being made homeless, which is, you know, something that resonates with me. It's happened in the blink of an eye.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of the preconception about people being addicts and things like that, that's really not necessarily the case. Often there are problems with that sort of thing. But we're making a documentary at the moment about Hope Fest and about homeless people. And some of the people we've interviewed from Crisis, the service users of Crisis, there was one gentleman and he actually used to be a lawyer, and then he met a woman who lived in South Africa and went over there and gave up his job and everything. And then they split up and he came back. And now he's homeless, but he had a really good profession and he's not an addict. He's never been an addict. Yeah. So I think it's really important to show that side of people as well.
There was that story about the couple, a middle-class couple, who actually ended up living at Heathrow Airport. Yeah. They ended up losing their home. Heathrow Airport was where they where they slept because they thought it was safer than actually being out on the streets. Yeah, exactly. So it can happen to anyone.
To anybody,
it must be devastating, because often, you know, when you see homeless people, you do, or you talk to them, or you take something over. I'm a very family-orientated person, and it gets me frustrated because I think, have they literally got no family that can say, oh, we'll take you in, have a room in ours? And it's so sad to think these people have got nobody at all.
Yeah. It's so sad. I mean, if I ended up homeless, I would never actually be homeless. I would always have somewhere to go. But imagine
you might not have that support network behind you.
It's awfully sad. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we're going to be touching on later is, as Lisa mentioned, the tampon tax. Back to women who are homeless and on the streets. Yeah. How much harder are things like that for women to conquer with that? That just must be another hurdle for them to have to go over.
Imagine not even having a toilet to use when you're like at that time of the month. That must be absolutely awful. And never mind then the issue of like sanitary product as well. But we do encourage people through Hope Fest to donate tampons and towels to the homeless centres for people. But really, I think they should just be available in health centres anyway. But it must be absolutely awful that time of the month on the street.
I suppose you've got to think about your shelter, you know, safety, shelter, food, and, you know,
cleanliness, hygiene.
It's going to come down. That's going to come lower down the list. So.
Of course it is, yeah. Did you find that people were donating female products?
Yeah, a lot of them were actually. We got a lot of packs that were made up specifically for women. So most of those will go to the women's homeless shelter on Rodney Street, because that's just exclusively for women. So they're going to get a big donation. They're still collecting some items in, but lots of like even nice things like body sprays, you know, to make you feel good about yourself.
But I suppose because a lot of homeless people are actually male, a lot of the shelters have been designed specifically for men. So there's actually is there a lack of female shelters out there?
I mean, there's that one on Rodney Street, but predominantly they are single men's shelters. Although the Whitechapel Centre will take men and women, but they tend to be then placed in hostels for single sex. I think it's difficult as well for people, because a lot of couples who become homeless end up staying on the street because they're separated otherwise, and then they don't have a phone or anything, so they can't contact each other.
It's almost segregation, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there are reasons for it. One of the reasons is like domestic violence and stuff like that, so they do tend to try and keep men and women separate, because there are often issues with that. But I think if you were a homeless couple, I'd rather stay on the street with my partner than be separated and have no way of contacting them.
Have that support.
Yeah, maybe that's the way forward, to try and find something for couples who are... I mean, do you see how people have maybe come off the streets from the side of the charity that you're working and pick themselves back up from the work that you're doing?
Yeah, we actually offered work experience positions as well at the festival to homeless people, so they could gain experience in stage management, in just general admin, artist liaison. So we actually encouraged the service users of Crisis and the Whitechapel Centre to come and work at the festival.
Okay, what sort of success stories have you had come out of that then? Because that sounds amazing.
Yeah, the festival was only 2 weeks ago, and this was the first time that we've actually done that this year. So the results are not yet in. But I know that they all had a really good time and really enjoyed themselves, and it gave them a massive confidence boost, because it's hard enough to get experience in those fields anyway for anybody. So yeah, it was really exciting.
Help with their self-respect, and you know that they can contribute something to society.
Exactly. And this year I'm going to be setting up Hope Fest Academy. So it's a similar thing, but on a wider scale. So we'll be training all homeless people in every aspect of festival production and music performance, and hoping that next year the festival will be run entirely by homeless people, and performing at some of the slots as well.
And I think music's often a way of expressing yourself, isn't it? You'll know yourself with being a singer. It's often, I mean, that's why people do all these hits like country and western and things, isn't it? It is a way of expressing your feelings, and it's what you're doing is just amazing, really, isn't it?
I think it brings people together, doesn't it, as well, music, and everyone loves music.
Especially in this city.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's nobody who doesn't like music, is there? So that it really makes the cause more accessible as well. Because people just want to come and see good music.
The venues that were getting involved as well were just fabulous,
they were
really good
brilliant.
venues in the city.
There's 15
more,
venues,
more than happy to work with you, because
Amazing.
obviously what it does.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's a really good weekend, and thanks very much for being a brilliant host, Lisa. That district, you're amazing.
We touched earlier talking of ladies' products. Did you know that whilst we don't pay tax on things such as exotic meats, alcoholic jellies or sugar flowers, we do pay a 5% tax on women's sanitary products? After the break, Gael's going to be catching up with Vice President of the Liverpool University Student Guild to discuss the cost of being a woman.
Welcome back. On this episode, we're talking about the cost of being a woman and how, for some of us in more difficult situations, we struggle to meet that cost. Gael headed over to Liverpool University Students Guild to find out how the Guild have cut that cost.
While numerous countries have already abolished it, the tax on sanitary products remains an issue in the UK. The price of tampons and towels that 1 person out of 2 in this world uses every month for about 30 years of their life includes a 5% tax, a regulation that Liverpool University's Students Guild has decided to tackle by offering to the feminine students a decent price on these products. Emma Sims, Vice President of the Guild, told me how it started.
So we have an online system where students can submit ideas that they want to change about the university or within the guild as well. And one student decided that they wanted to see the tampon tax removed from the products that we sell in the guild shop. So she submitted it online and it gets sent through to me, and we work with her to make that reality. It came into effect over the summer, but this is the first year where students will have been available to buy them without the tax.
So how are you actually doing that? Who's paying that tax?
So the guild now covers the tax from our budget, so students never actually will pay that tax, but we sort of absorb the cost. We've taken 5% tax off, so they're 5% cheaper than they would be in other shops that still keep the tax on.
And so how do you feel yourself about this tax?
I don't agree with the tax. I don't think that it's a good thing, because tax is supposed to be a kind of monetary discouragement from buying a product. So alcohol, cigarettes have tax on to discourage people from buying them because they're not good for you. But sanitary products, those who menstruate need them, and it's obviously an essential and sort of vital part of living a normal life. So I don't believe it's something that should be taxed.
What do you think we can do to try and, change that? Because this is one thing on the campus, but what if that's for students? What about other women?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to show that us not selling sanitary products with that added tax is a sort of symbol. But in terms of the wider campaign, I know there's some MPs who are working really hard to try and get the EU to look again at that tax, but also sort of making sure that we're lobbying politicians and asking the right questions at the right times as well.
The VAT, value added tax, is a tax on the purchase price that is paid by the end consumer. Before 2001, the VAT on sanitary products in the UK was of 17.3%, until Labour MP Dawn Primarolo lobbied to the European Union for a reduction to 5%, arguing it was about fairness and doing what we can to lower the cost of a necessity.
I think, in my personal opinion, it's about having the right people in power. So making sure that we elect sort of politicians to the European Parliament and to our government who are in favour of this and won't just brush it off.
Right. Yeah, because I had a look earlier online and I saw that UKIP was actually trying to do that. How do you feel about this?
Well, I don't necessarily agree with some of my personal politics, but obviously if they're in support of the tax, in removing that tax, then that's a good thing.
Don't you think it's a bit sexist in some ways?
What, the tax? Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, potentially. I mean, condoms are tax-free, so there you go.
So, tampons are luxury items. I mean,
if you're calling that a luxury, I'd hate to see something dreadful happen to you.
As well, so it's just the product that just keeps on giving all the time.
I feel so luxurious.
Oh, I know. Do you know what? Every time, each month, I think, what a luxury this is, as I'm lying there in pain. But all joking aside, there's so many things. I mean, there's the likes of crocodile steaks on the list of like luxurious helicopters. For goodness sake.
Well, I need a helicopter. Don't be taking that luxury away from me.
Every month you need a helicopter.
Yeah.
Every month you need a helicopter.
Lads mags.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, a lot of them do need them, don't they? What they like, but they still turn around and are actually having this discussion, which I can't believe in this century
The new millennium.
we are. I mean, just quickly back to what we spoke about earlier about homeless women on the streets, having to like, for want of a better thing to say, having to go in toilets and stuff paper in there. If for a start there shouldn't be a tax, they should be free.
Yeah.
End of.
Sometimes is it a choice between eating or buying some sanitary wear?
Exactly.
That's disgusting.
No woman in this age should be that degraded. And that's not standing up being look at me, I'm a huge feminist. That is just,
That's
no
a good
woman
word,
should
degraded.
be put in any position where they have to go, oh, actually, this is what I need. There's so many things that I don't even think the tax should be anything we should be even talking about. They should be free. You look at the morning after pill, you look at the contraceptive pill, they are available free on the NHS, as are condoms, everything, which is fine, that's great, but that is still a choice. It's your choice whether you want to have a baby, whether you want to get a sexually transmitted disease. That is a choice. You, as a woman, do not have a choice.
No.
That is happening every month. End of. Never mind the tax. You shouldn't be paying for
And
them.
you get the embarrassment factor as well. So you've got the girls are already having to live rough. They know their period's due, so they have to go into a woman's refuge centre or somewhere, and it's embarrassing. It shouldn't be embarrassing, but it is.
Is the period the last taboo?
Yeah.
That's what's driven them. I mean, I've read cases of women, homeless women, having to go and shoplift them. I mean, we said degrading earlier. Imagine being caught because you have literally nothing, but you have no other choice. This shouldn't even, the tax shouldn't even be coming into it. It should be the fact they're going to tax them or want to tax them is an absolute joke.
What if, though, just to put it out there, if the tax that they made off women's products was used solely for women's causes, like, I don't know, to go back into the women's refuge? What if it was reinvested back into society or back into the national health, but solely for things that were accessible only by women? Would we be more agreeable then, do you think?
Well, I think if you thought it was going somewhere, but it is expensive to be a woman, and even turning up to do a television show, a bloke's not expected to turn up with makeup, with hair, with everything done, and this is the type of thing that you are automatically expected as a woman to. Gosh, they're probably going to get struck down for this, but to appear, your appearance, you're supposed to look a certain way.
Then maybe as women, more women should resist that sort of like social pressure. There was a campaign. I think was it a year or a couple of years ago, where women were posting themselves without makeup on the internet and stuff. Do you remember that? And do you know what? Do you know what? There was a real beauty about that, actually.
That's because they're all filtered.
Oh my God, I wouldn't ever post on without a filter.
But because there is a social pressure, and I agree that there's a social pressure. I mean, personally, I don't feel that. I don't feel that social pressure. I just go, yeah, right. But I can understand that other people do, but if there was a big resistance to that pressure, I don't know, maybe that would change. I do think that that idea, though, Lisa, about the maybe having an element of what gets paid towards the sanitary products going into things like you're doing, and actually being siphoned in that way. It sounds like a great idea, actually.
But alternatively, they could just not charge any tax, and then then tax the other items that are luxuries, and then there would no need to do that.
The profits on women's products is enormous, and they make even more. You know, like those little pens that they had, like the Bic for her. They actually marketed a pen for women.
A pen?
A pen.
It was pink,
Not Lisa.
It was pink.
Yeah, but
love
you
pink,
would
but I don't think I'd go that
you
far.
would pay so much more for your pink pen than if you bought an ordinary pen.
Well,
Same
I
with
was going to
razors.
say, when you go shopping, do you go for the women's razors or the men's?
I buy men's now.
Well, I used to get the women's, but I buy men's because they give a better shave.
See, I buy women's and then nick my brother's.
So he cuts his face.
Yeah, he's always covered in
It's true,
stuff.
these products are marketed at us in a particular way. Again, you know, I know that personally it just really seriously doesn't mean anything to me. But they do market those things at women, and you know, and women buy into it as well. And you know, I would be all for encouraging women just not to buy into that nonsense where you pay pounds more for something that's the same as or less than the guys get.
There was
Because
I was
it's
getting
a colour or
I was getting my fake tan, and I went to the fake tan. I went to the lady and I was like, and they didn't have the product. She said, "Well, just get the men's version. It's exactly the same, but it's £3 cheaper." Oh my God! And you just thought, I did not know that. So now I have the male product.
Can I actually share a story on this particular issue? Share a story about hair. Okay.
40 seconds.
We got 40
Go on,
seconds.
go on.
Hair, right? It costs no more to cut a woman's hair than it does to cut a man's hair. The differential in hair, the price that we pay for our haircuts, came around in the days of the wigs, when women's wigs were more complicated and it cost more.
Yeah. So I'm going to go out and buy a wig, obviously, and have tax on it because that's a luxury outfit. We'll have to take a pause there for a moment on this, but we will see you after the break when we continue the discussion.
Different haircuts.
Yeah, turn our hair out. Welcome back. And before the break, Gael met Emma Sims from Liverpool University's Students' Guild to find out how and why Liverpool University has become a tampon tax-free campus. If you're on a really low income or homeless, as we spoke about earlier, is it fair to be taxed on this? We keep going back to it.
Any income?
But any income at all. I mean, not just tampons as well, something else we don't choose. Maternity pads. You know, the last thing you want after giving birth, we all know, twice I had to do them.
And those bricks.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable. It was as bad as giving birth. But you've got to pay on them as well, and it's back to the same old thing. I mean, a man has a cold, it's man flu, everything goes worse, doesn't it? If it was a men's item, would they be looking at it and even having this discussion?
Does this come back to who's in charge and who's making the decisions on what is a luxury product? And if we look at our government and who's in charge and how it breaks it down, there are more male MPs, more men in charge who are making these decisions and obviously have never experienced it, and they're the ones who decide, yes, this is a luxury item.
Have you ever watched it discussed in court? And you can see men sniggering. It's like when you say to a kid, "Oh, period," period. You can actually physically see the men.
Men are
snigger.
competing with each other. Mine's longer than yours.
Yeah.
But it is
The length of the period I'm talking.
Period is such a topic which is almost like a little bit taboo. I know when I was reading about this topic, I was thinking, oh, do I feel comfortable talking about periods? And because it's almost like it's seen as it's gross, it's unclean, it's a curse, all of these various stereotypes which come from having your period. But when you actually think about it, well, over half the population are menstruating.
52%.
52%. It's a normal monthly thing. And actually, why are we embarrassed about talking about something that happens in our
It's
lives?
like the sex talk, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's up
a
there with
taboo
that.
subject, isn't it?
But, you know, you're right.
Yeah.
Why?
Emma Watson, the British tennis player, back earlier this year, talked about why her performance was so poor, and she actually mentioned, it's that time of the month, and it sort of started to get a lot of athletes talking about how having periods does actually impact on your performance because you've less energy, you're not feeling
And then there's the week before, you got your PMS.
Yeah, you feel dreadful. I think one point that you've just raised there about how things are different when you're growing up. Years ago, when we had our sex education with boys talked about bits growing and all armpit hair and everything, girls got taken in another room, didn't they? Because you spoke about, because we couldn't talk about periods in front of the boys, could we? That would have been horrendous. My son, when he had his lessons, he's like 12, they all did them together.
Yeah.
So that, I feel, is a step forward, because he now, you know, my daughter sheds one too. He's like, oh, you're on your period. But at least he knows about it and he understands. Whereas years ago, you've got this little very personally yours book that you took home, and when the boys went to see it, they couldn't see anything.
And the adverts were with, was it blue ink or something? You know, yes, because you didn't want to show that like period.
And
blood.
also as well, when you have a period, you can run down the beach if you've got a tampon.
On roller skates. Yeah, it's amazing. You're full of all vitality. Sorry, what? Who created, which marketing genius created those adverts?
But is that somewhere the reason why they think it is a luxurious item? Because of how things have been portrayed to the public that, oh, well, if you have a towel, you mightn't feel comfortable, you won't be able to do this, but if you put a tampon in, whoa, it's like being in a helicopter. Off you go.
Well, you don't pay tax on a helicopter,
Of course,
so,
yeah,
you know.
that's true, yeah.
I don't know, clearly something needs to change. I mean, if you're living on the streets, first of all, you're not living a luxurious life. The last thing you want to be paying out for is this luxury item that's a tampon.
I think at least have an option to go into a health centre and get them for free, and then they can still have them in the shops. It's like condoms, you can buy them if you want, but you can also get them for free. So maybe something like that, just to
The people
begin
who need
with.
them can actually get them when they actually need them.
Without shame or embarrassment or
Exactly.
fear of being judged, because you know it takes you back to that whole you're being judged for not only being homeless, being a woman that's homeless, that's on a period.
Yeah, and the government actually donate condoms to homeless shelters. They like buy them for the shelters, but they don't do the same for sanitary products.
Is that
which
even possible?
Yeah, so they rely on donations from the public basically, and also if the shelters are full, then there's nothing they can do. There's nowhere to get them if the shelters are full. You know, sometimes the homeless shelters are just completely full to capacity, so then
So you
there's
can't walk in
nowhere.
off the street, as in, you know, a drop-in almost to collect free items.
I think you probably can actually do that, but you know, a lot of the time people not even aware of the services. I think, but obviously if people don't donate the products, then there's absolutely nowhere to get them from.
I have to say, it never actually really sort of even crossed my mind.
No,
that
I feel
but
quite
it's
ignorant about it
Yeah.
actually until today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, you spoke about this earlier, not just obviously the tampons, everything like that, but you mentioned about haircuts earlier and about how things generally really are more expensive for a woman, and it is really, really bad in general, the way that they
go to a
upmarket
barber's?
things. No, I wouldn't.
But it's because, you know, girls they're expected to be pretty. They've got to be, you know, they're meant to look attractive. They're meant to look a certain way. And society has put these expectations on. You've got to shave your legs. You've got to shave your armpits. Your hair's got to look nice. I remember like not wearing makeup into work one day, and I had so many people saying to me, "Are you feeling okay?
You're not well."
You're not well." Exactly. So it's.
Having said that, though, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have seen, but certainly in Liverpool city centre, there is an increase in men's fancy barbers where, you know, you're getting the full shave, you know, for the beard thing that's the current in vogue to do. There's drinks you can have, alcoholic drinks. Women aren't allowed. I took my son to one the other weekend.
Really?
In a very well-known shopping centre in the centre of Liverpool.
But women weren't allowed in the shop, or
Women weren't allowed in the barbers. It was men only. But I think that's quite cool.
It's something that.
Maybe men are
If you
raising
did
the
it,
game. There's
maybe
more
they
pressure
are,
on
maybe
men
they're
now.
thinking
Actually,
now.
do they got to have good hair? Do they have the
Metrosexual.
6-packs? Are they waxed chests?
Yeah.
I was going to say something else about.
Oh, please do.
I think I know what
We're all
you mean.
girls
I was
together.
going to say back, sack, and crack. You know, are they maintaining themselves?
And that just used to be for the gay population. Now it's, as I said,
becoming
metrosexual.
more acceptable,
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, some of the men out there are just as pretty as the girls. You know, you feel quite, oh God, we should have made more of an effort, because they're curling their eyelashes, they're getting their eyebrows defined, and as you said, the back, sack and crack.
And it's
the
also
male
waxing
tan.
hands as well.
Yeah.
Simon Cowell, he's a classic. If you look at his hands, you'll see smooth hands and then hairy going all the way up.
Really?
Yeah, check it out. Go and watch X Factor.
You see, that's something else that we've just spoke about when you say about whether this is a sexist tax or however it may be. But you mentioned it very much, it's not just sort of the gay. A lot of people think that if men are interested in their health or they look good, this sounds awful, but they think, oh, he must be gay. And, you know, that side of it must be quite frustrating from a bloke's point of view, mustn't it?
Take care and pride.
Is this though, the realms that we're getting into now, is this though begging questions about how obsessed with image we're becoming, actually.
Totally.
Obsessed with image in our society, whether you're male or female, and there is a disproportionate thing in the sense that, you know, it is more expensive to be a woman, and a lot of that, but not all of it, a lot of that is often to do with, you know, the image that we have, and that's shifting as well towards men, and, you know, getting rid of the body hair and all the rest of it. I mean, I find that concerning and I know we've moved off a little here, but I find that concerning that we're becoming so obsessed with image, because it seems to me that then encourages a type of self-absorption that takes us away, in fact, from important topics like the one that we began with, which is about, you know, about the homelessness and the tax on the do you know what I mean?
Is it just a vicious circle that to try and achieve these things and be these things and look the part and be the part? Is it like one big vicious circle that because you've tried to do that, that's how you've ended up homeless, because you've lost everything through, or I mean,
the back sack and cry.
Yeah, your back sack and cry. But it's true, isn't it? It's like sort of evolved round itself, and you wonder if it's all come back round on itself, and we are.
But that self-absorption, it's interesting, because I know a lot of people now, when they walk along the streets and they see homeless people, they sort of ignore them, or they mentally block them out and they don't acknowledge them.
Yeah. And we were talking about that earlier, weren't we? Because I mean, certainly I know that the people on the street, one of the things that is degrading and hurtful is that when people completely ignore their humanity, their basic humanity.
I think just like saying hello to somebody and giving them a smile is sometimes worth more than anything else.
Yeah.
Or taking some time to talk to them, you know, find out about them, and who they are, and
Because it says you exist. It says you exist. You're another human being, and I acknowledge your existence, however difficult that existence might be.
Did you see that campaign in London? It was quite interesting. There was a guy wearing wooden boards, which basically said "F the homeless." But people going up to him and talking, saying, well, why are you saying this? This is such an important, you know, part of our society. We need to help these people. Then they changed the sign over and it said, help the poor. And people just walked on past. No one paid him any notice at all. But it was only when you made a real statement about it that actually there was that engagement and that sharing of the knowledge.
That's really sad and says a lot about society.
The video's on YouTube, actually. It's quite interesting to watch all these people actually contributing.
But it is, even if you do stop and take the time, if I haven't got changed, you know, I pass every single night, I pass them walking up through from when I leave work. And I'll always, if I've got change, I will give them change. If I haven't, I'll turn around and say, I'm really sorry I haven't got change. And they'll be like, well, have a nice evening.
Yeah.
And you think, that's basic things that you teach your kids, basic manners. And that's, like you said, when you're not being treated as a human being, and yet you are on the streets and you're still taking the time to have basic manners with people, that's what makes it more sad, doesn't it?
Is that a preconception, whereas are people scared of approaching the homeless because they think, you know, is it safe to do so? Do they have mental problems? Is it...
Well, if you do and they do have any issues, you walk away. I personally don't give money. I take a cup of coffee or a sandwich, and it's something that we spoke about before. Christmas Eve, I take both of my kids out and with loads of food and money and drinks, hot drinks, and deliver, because I want my children to see, look, this is how easy it happens. And we try and engage with as many of the men or the women, generally men though, that we come across, and just have a chat, because my kids need to see how lucky they are. You said before, giving money straight to the pub. Don't want to judge, but I'd rather take money or food. Anyway, after all of this, we're going to go out to a break, and then we'll come back to what's trending with some fantastically interesting topics. See you in a second. Welcome back. In this episode, we've been focusing on the cost of being a woman, and we're joined by musician and organiser of Hope Fest, Grace Henney. But before we get back on topic, it's time for our favourite part of the show, What's Trending, where we take a look at what's been happening recently in the world. Iranian husbands. Maisie, you've been looking at this, haven't you?
Yeah, I have a little. And it's a really interesting thing that seems to be happening, actually, and very heartening, that Iranian men have been supporting their wives and wavering their what is in the culture their right to control certain aspects of the women's lives. And they've been putting things out on social media and saying, you know, saying that actually they feel a bit ashamed that they have these rights over other human beings, you know. And I think this is a very interesting movement, actually, that seems to be happening over there. And the women are also asking for the rights to be rewritten in their marriage contracts. That's also very encouraging. I think what we have to be just a little bit careful of is, you know, that in the West, we don't then sort of assume that everything that happens in the West and that is a product of the West becomes seen to be a good thing, because clearly, you know, that's not the case.
Well, what sort of started it all off? Was there one incident that happened that led to this
I'm
change?
not sure about that. It seems to be something that's taken off in Iran at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
It's just sort of grown and
and grown as the word spread, really.
So the Iranian men have come to a realisation that they have too much control, because, you know, to pick up on the word you used, over their wives. Yeah. So, when you mentioned the word contract, is their marriage contract different to our marriage contract?
The marriage contract in Iran apparently gives the men certain rights over their women going out in public, what they can be involved in, you know, whether they can go out of the home. In certain situations, you know, the man can actually say, no, you are not doing that, and B, and it's not just an opinion, it is an actual contractual right.
And this is a culture thing, not a religion thing.
Yeah. Well, whether or not these things originally stem from religious ideas is another debate. Yeah.
What if the woman says no?
Then she can say no, but she hasn't got the right to do the thing.
So she's in breach of contract then?
Yeah, she's in breach of contract.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose maybe some of this has come from arranged marriages as well, hasn't it? And you're sort of grown up and you're told who you're going to marry and who you're going to be with. Yeah. And maybe this is a step forward in towards women sort of going, well, actually, you know, I can be me as well as getting into this arrangement.
Yeah. Certainly for their culture, yeah.
But this is the interesting thing, is that obviously in this particular context, because, you know, within the marriage contract, the man can say whether or not the woman can go out to work. Yeah, you can go out to work or not. It's not the woman's choice, and only the woman's choice whether she goes out to work. Yeah, so. And what seems to be happening is that obviously these particular individuals are wanting to recognise each other as equal human beings within the marriage, rather than one individual having more power over the other individual. You know, and you know, on a personal level, I'd applaud that. And on a principle level, you know, that's one of the principles that's come out of the struggles that we have had in Western culture. But again, what we need to be, I think, aware of is that not everything that comes out of the West is necessarily a good thing, but that sort of recognition as a principle of equality.
The equality and the balance in relationships. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, one of the things that I noticed recently, which came out, is related to football, and that FIFA has finally included women's teams.
Oh, there you go.
Now, I'm not a gamer, but I am so supportive of women getting involved in team sports, and I think this can only help to encourage more girls to go out there and play football or play rugby or get involved in sports teams. So I think FIFA is really sort of leading the way on this. So
if you forward thinking,
particularly if like the kids are sat there and they think you get the option to go, oh, there's a women's football team in it. It just sort of makes it more acceptable.
Was it about your melody? But Olivia plays for the school football.
Well, she's like, she used to play when she was younger, and she loves it.
But it's also good because there are a lot of gamers, because you know, gamers are, you know, everyone makes the assumption that they're all going to be male, or all going to be sort of young and a little bit nerdy. But actually, there's a huge a huge percentage of them are actually women.
Quite cool now, isn't it?
It is, and sort of more be able for if you're a woman who is keen on sports, to actually be able to go along and play, I think is absolutely
And I
fantastic.
think they're getting more and more recognised.
Yeah.
The England ladies, I mean, half the time they do better than the men, don't they?
Well, they look better for a start.
Yeah, they do. But it's
huge
becoming...
following, wasn't there? A huge following on the women's football team recently.
Yeah.
You know, with the World Cup and everything.
Well, Everton and Liverpool ladies both do fantastic, and Arsenal ladies are doing fantastic for
I think
the
it's
game.
just growing in popularity, isn't it? It's just getting more and more popular, especially with the World Cup. Just sorry to hog it, but is you know, especially with the men dropping out of the World Cup, and suddenly everyone was just saying, well, you know how the women did, and how did women
Do you know
do?
what the pay is, Sarah?
In football,
in women's football,
there is a huge difference, obviously, in salaries. If we look at some of our footballers, and you know, Everton and Liverpool, on what is it, 100 grand, 120 grand a week, and then I can't even imagine what the women's salaries would be, but they're not going to even be in that league at all. So there is a huge discrepancy, but that can also link back to the fact that female sports aren't necessarily as popular as sponsorship-wise, and you know, people going in to watch them and, you know, paying 40, 50 pounds per ticket.
Got to be honest, I am a football fan, and don't shoot me, I don't think I could sit and watch a 90-minute women's football game.
Why is that?
Don't know. Just don't know.
I can kind of see where you're coming from on that one, and it's just something I've always gone and watched the football with my dad when I was younger and done things, and I personally don't. Maybe it's because it's not the norm and it's not what we've grown up with. Maybe with putting this in the FIFA, it is going to make things different in people's mindset. But I grew up in the era that men play football, and that's you know, that goes against everything you all sit and say. So maybe FIFA doing this, making it something that it is the normality, it could massively change things.
Interestingly, I was talking to a fella who's a man who's a coach, a football coach with a young lads team, and he was saying that he was really enjoying watching the women's game because he said that there were less dirty tricks. He said there was loads of skill as well, you know, and that he was really enjoying it, and it's sort of interesting what our cultural perceptions are, you know, and you were saying you found it more difficult if in a way watching the women's game because we're just not used to it, you know, and the more we get used to it, the more we'll enjoy it, I'm sure.
I mean, I've been talking about women. I've been looking at the hashtag that's currently been trending on Twitter, shout your abortion. I was brought up Roman Catholic, so from being brought up, abortion is a complete no-no. You know, you get pregnant because you're married, obviously, if you're Roman Catholic. You have the baby, you get on with your life. There's, I think this started in America, and there's women who are very pro-abortion, and they're hashtagging shout your abortion. Now, for me personally, whether you have an abortion or not, I don't think it's something that should be shouted about. I do believe it's most definitely personal choice, and you shouldn't be judged whether you choose to have an abortion. The circumstances, for example, rape, you know, you might not feel able to carry the child, and you do choose to have an abortion. Does that mean you should tweet about it and get a hashtag trend?
I think this is getting misconstrued because this is all linked back to the fact that in America they are so extreme with their viewpoints, as in it's you know, yes or no, there is no middle ground, and they are shutting down Planned Parenthood, so they're shutting down the clinics and taking away women's choices and ability to go and have an abortion if they need one.
Well, is this the right way to go about it? I almost think that I agree with the fact that you should never take and I'm sure there's not one person taking a decision of having an abortion lightly. Every single situation is different, and unless one of us were in that situation, I don't feel that I could say, yes, this is how I feel, yes, this is how isn't. I see it from a point that, as Lisa mentioned, if you've been raped and you're going to end up having this child that you're going to resent, and then you've either got to give birth to it and then give it away or whatever. Yes, I agree this should exist for that reason, but I almost think this is a bit tacky. I think there's other ways to go out and get a point across rather than have something like that in people's faces
It
trending.
shouldn't be used as a contraceptive,
No,
should it?
it's like it's glamorising it,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's like, oh, let's get this trending to see
I
what
don't
happens.
think it's glamorising it. I think it's trying to share different people's circumstances of why they have had an abortion, and based on those reasons that you've mentioned, whether I got raped when I was 18 or this happened to me, and that's why I had an abortion at that age. And those women are sharing those
What if
stories.
you were raped at 40 and you were financially able to bring a child up? 18, I don't completely understand, but what about at 40? Or not raped, you've fallen pregnant with your husband
But this
at
is an
40?
American trend, isn't it? We're talking about
Yeah.
an American trend, and so that the point that you were raising earlier is like really interesting. If you have this slightly polarised argument, which is like, are you for or are you against? And it's sort of like, well, actually, the whole arena is much more nuanced than that, which is what you're saying, quite rightly. If clinics are going to be taken away, and that's going to take away the choice for women at all, you know, make it really difficult to get abortions in these extreme circumstances, yeah, then you might have to trend to change that. You might have to
It's the
trend to
choice
change
of
that.
words, isn't it? Shout your abortion.
It certainly is.
not
I just
nice.
think the way they've gone about it, it's not so good, really.
It's very
isn't it?
American.
Oh dear. Well, that's all we've got time for. I think we're all exhausted. That's all we've
all
got
going down,
time
week
for
still.
today. Many thanks to our guest here, Anna. Next time, we're going to be having a very special episode in aid of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're going to be getting up to all sorts in the name of charity. So we'll see you then.